Most people think resale value dies when an engine fails. That is not always true. Some outboards keep running perfectly and still become the reason your boat will not sell or only sells after a painful price cut. The buyer does not need proof. They only need doubt. And doubt spreads fast in the boating world. Today, we are covering the outboards that destroy resale value without breaking how it happens and how owners realize it only after it is too late. Number 10. Force 122. Stroke. A sale can fail without any mechanical drama. A buyer can smile during the sea trial, then frown during pricing, since the decision is really about confidence. That confidence depends on support, parts flow, plus buyer comfort. The engine can run clean today, still the buyer thinks about tomorrow. Force 122. Stroke lands in that uncomfortable zone. Plenty of examples start easily, plus run all season. Many owners describe normal reliability, simple use, plus low stress weekends. Resale value still drops, since many shoppers treat the badge like temporary power, not like a long-term asset. The shift happens early in the conversation. A buyer sees the transom, then imagines the repower path before even touching the throttle. The buyer may never accuse the motor of being bad. The buyer frames it as risk. Fewer shops willing to dig deep, uneven parts, confidence, plus a fear of being stuck with a motor that nobody wants later. That fear spreads beyond the engine. A buyer starts pricing the hull as a project plus repower. The hull can be excellent. The trailer can be clean. The offer still falls, since the buyer believes the future includes a replacement. Even strong compression readings plus clean gear oil may not change that belief. Evidence fights fear. Fear often wins. Some buyers also think about insurance valuation. A less favored badge can lead to conservative valuation, which affects loan approval plus coverage confidence. That extra friction can push buyers toward easier options, lowering offers further. Dealers amplify the same logic. A trade quote has to account for time on the lot. Anything that narrows the buyer pool slows turnover. Slower turnover forces a lower number, even with a motor that runs well. A dealer also thinks about financing, since lenders prefer common, easily supported engines. That preference quietly affects trade value. Owners rarely feel this during summer. The lesson arrives during the first serious offer, since that is the moment the engine becomes a story, not a machine. The story is repower soon, even for a motor that could keep running for years. A louder reputation enters next, tied to early direct injection history plus dockside arguments. Number 9. Evinrude 150 fixed ram injection. Resale value can fall through memory alone. A motor can idle smooth, accelerate hard, deliver a clean weekend. The buyer still hears old stories, then prices those stories as risk. Evinrude 150 fixed ram. Injection carries that kind of shadow. Many examples, especially those cared for by meticulous owners, run strong for a long time. Resale trouble comes from the fixed label, since it pulls in a whole era of direct injection fear, regardless of the specific engine in front of the buyer. The fear often arrives in short phrases. Hard to diagnose. Expensive parts. Few shops want it. Each phrase may be true in some cases, stretched in others. Used markets rarely separate nuance. Buyers blend everything into one bucket, then demand a discount to compensate for the bucket. The conversation shifts away from normal questions like hours, oil choice, plus prop condition. Buyers focus on hidden costs. They ask about injector work. They ask about computer updates. They ask which technician will take the job without hesitation. The engine can run flawlessly during a sea trial. The buyer still wants a price cushion. Dealers tend to be blunt in pricing, even while staying polite in tone. A dealership has to sell the next customer a simple story. A debated direct injection badge forces a longer explanation. Longer explanations slow sales. Slow sales shrink trade offers. The offer can feel unfair to an owner with a healthy motor. It is the dealer pricing buyer hesitation. A small detail can tilt the sale. A buyer may search the model name on a phone during the showing, then find old threads, angry posts, plus dramatic headlines. The seller can argue context. The buyer trusts the screen. That is how reputation becomes price. A motor can be healthy, still the search results shape the offer. Owners often learn the trap at trade time. The motor starts clean, the rig looks good. The offer arrives far below expectations, since the dealership already expects long conversations with future shoppers. A performance-focused direct injection model appears next, praised by owners, still discounted through specialist-only vibes. Number 8. Mercury 150 Optimax Direct Injection. A strong runner can still feel like a complicated purchase for a used buyer. Many shoppers want the simplest story possible: broad service support, predictable troubleshooting, plus easy resale later. Anything that feels technical can trigger a discount, even with perfect operation. Mercury 150. Optimax Direct Injection, especially early production units, sits inside that technical category. Owners talk about efficiency plus punch. Buyers talk about diagnostics plus risk. The difference is not horsepower. The difference is comfort. Direct injection adds layers: air compressor systems, sensors, computer logic, fuel delivery precision. None of that guarantees trouble. The used buyer still imagines the worst case: one minor issue turning into weeks of troubleshooting, plus a bill that feels open-ended. That imagined future becomes a discount request today. The sale process shows the pattern clearly. A buyer watches cold start behavior. A buyer listens at idle. A buyer watches the telltale. Everything checks out. The buyer still asks which shop has deep Optimax experience. In many areas, only a few shops become known for that work. A buyer without access to such a shop prices that gap into the offer. Documentation helps. Still, it has limits. Receipts for compressor service, fuel system upkeep, plus consistent logs can keep serious buyers engaged. Many shoppers still compare the listing to a similar 4-stroke package. Then choose the option that feels easier to own. That comparison pushes resale down, even for healthy Optimax engines. Owners usually learn the lesson quietly. Listings get views. Still fewer calls. Offers arrive lower than expected. The engine keeps running well. Still, the market demands a cushion to calm the buyer. A respected brand enters next, paired with a technology term that can sound expensive to the average used shopper. Number 7. Yamaha 200 High Pressure Direct Injection. Used buyers rarely buy a logo alone. They buy a system, plus they buy their own comfort level. A respected brand can still carry one generation that triggers caution, even while other models sell instantly. Yamaha 200 High Pressure. Direct injection often gets judged through that lens. The motor can run strong, deliver fast acceleration, hold steady temperature, plus feel dependable. Resale trouble can still show up because high-pressure direct injection sounds like expensive complexity to shoppers who do not live inside the details. The fear focuses on the invisible. Buyers ask about fuel habits, storage habits, plus prior owner use patterns. They try to read the engine's past through the seller's answers. Any uncertainty becomes leverage. The motor can run flawlessly during a sea trial. The buyer still negotiates for room to cover unknown history. This category splits the market into groups. One group understands the platform, respects it, accepts the upkeep. Another group wants the simplest 4-stroke story possible. Used listings attract many from the second group. That is why a clean, high-pressure direct injection engine can sell for less than an owner expects, even with excellent behavior. Service records become the strongest defense. A thick folder shrinks fear. A thin folder grows it. Dealers often echo the same logic through trade offers, pricing the chance of buyer hesitation, plus the chance of slow resale on their lot. The next resale killer rarely shows up on compression tests since it lives in the control system plus the rigging ecosystem. If you've ever tried to sell a clean, running outboard and felt the offers didn't make sense, share the engine in the comments. Other buyers learn from those stories. Hit like if this feels familiar and subscribe for more grounded breakdowns like this. Number 6. Mercury 250 Verado Supercharged 4-stroke. Resale value can drop through integration, not through failure. A buyer can love the way a boat rides, love the way the motor sounds, love the way the throttle feels. The buyer still worries about the cost story tied to the entire system. Mercury 250 Verado Supercharged 4-stroke often triggers that system-level thinking: smooth idle, strong mid-range, refined cruising. The resale friction comes from the components around it: digital control networks, electronic gauges, steering integration, plus the buyer's fear of future compatibility problems. Used buyers tend to think ahead. They picture ownership beyond the first season. They imagine future repairs, future replacements, future repower decisions. They wonder what parts of the boat must change along with the engine. That imagined bill becomes leverage, even without any current faults. The buyer offers less to create a safety buffer. Dealers price the same fear in a colder way. A dealership wants fast turnover. A boat that requires a long explanation costs time. Time costs margin. A clean Verado package can receive a trade number that disappoints an owner who expected the premium badge to protect value. The conversation often reveals the real issue. Buyers ask more about controls than about cylinders. Buyers ask about wiring more than about hours. That is resale fear wearing a technical mask. The motor can run perfectly. Integration fear can still erode value. A common scenario plays out at private showings. A buyer says the engine feels great, then asks a quiet question about repower. The seller answers with confidence. The buyer still calculates the cost of replacing controls plus displays, in case a different brand ever goes on the transom. Even buyers who plan to keep the boat for years still think about resale, since they know the next buyer will ask the same questions. The list now pivots toward low horsepower, where resale can collapse through buyer pool size rather than mechanical risk. Number 5. Lehr 9.9 Propane Outboard. Small outboards can sell well in the right context. They can also become resale anchors through unfamiliarity. A motor can start easily, idle clean, push a tender all season, still used buyers hesitate. Lehr 9.9. Propane outboard sits in a niche fuel category. Niche fuel shrinks the buyer pool. Many shoppers prefer gasoline simply because it is familiar, widely supported, plus easy to explain to the next owner. Propane power forces questions, even for a healthy engine. Buyer questions revolve around continuity, parts availability long-term, technician experience, brand stability, fuel logistics. Those concerns can be vague. Vague fear still lowers value. Listings sit longer. Curious messages arrive, then fade. Serious offers arrive lower, since the buyer feels like they are accepting extra uncertainty. Dealers often avoid niche fuel setups unless the sale is easy. A dealer wants a straightforward story. A propane story requires education. Education slows sales. Slow sales reduce trade value. The engine can be dependable. The market still punishes unfamiliarity. Owners discover this late, usually during a sale attempt. They realize the motor runs fine. They also realize most buyers do not want to be the person taking a chance on something uncommon. A common pattern shows up in listings for small boats plus inflatable tenders. A buyer arrives excited, hears the motor run, then asks where to get service. The seller says it has never needed anything major. The buyer still worries about the first time it does need something. That worry lowers offers more than any small scuff on the cowling ever could. A specialized small outboard appears next, respected widely, still discounted through narrow fit rather than quality. Number 4. Yamaha T 9.9 High thrust 4-stroke. Specialized equipment sells best to people who already understand it. Used markets contain plenty of shoppers who do not. That mismatch creates resale pressure even for excellent engines. Yamaha T 9.9 High thrust. 4. Stroke often appears on boats set up for trolling, current control, plus heavy displacement at low speed. Owners who need that use case love the setup. The resale trap comes from audience size. Many buyers simply want a basic auxiliary motor. They see high thrust plus long shaft features, then wonder why it looks different. Confusion invites negotiation. A buyer asks what the setup is meant to do. A seller explains thrust, propeller selection, plus slow-speed control benefits. The right buyer smiles, since the explanation matches their needs. The wrong buyer hears complexity. Complexity becomes fear. Fear becomes a lower offer. Rigging can magnify the issue. Remote controls, brackets, fuel plumbing, plus steering links can make the system feel custom. Custom can mean hard to replace in a buyer's mind. Even with a simple system in reality, the buyer sees more pieces, then prices risk. This is where sellers face a hard choice. Wait for the perfect buyer who understands the niche, or cut price to attract the broader crowd. The motor itself can be excellent. The value loss comes from fit, not from function. Some buyers even plan to remove the kicker setup immediately. They treat it as clutter, not as value. That attitude changes pricing. The seller sees an expensive, carefully chosen system. The buyer sees something to unbolt. In that mismatch, the resale hit appears without any mechanical problem at all. Big horsepower returns next. Plus, the financial stakes climb quickly, since a single perception shift can erase major value. Number 3. Mercury 300 4-stroke, FIF 8. At high horsepower, buyers think in large numbers, even without saying them out loud. They picture fuel use, premium service, plus premium parts. That picture can lower resale offers, even for engines that run perfectly. Mercury 300 4-stroke 5.8 delivers strong performance plus modern design. The resale penalty can arrive through buyer fear around electronics, networked systems, plus the cost of ownership at that power level. A buyer may love the power, still worry about the long-term bill. Shoppers also talk about production eras. Many used buyers prefer a platform with time in the field. More time usually means more shared knowledge, more technician familiarity, plus more predictable parts pathways. That preference can reduce value for engines perceived as newer or more complex, even in perfect working order. Dealers often ask for service history that feels almost strict. Buyers also want that paper trail, since it helps their own resale later. Independent maintenance can be excellent. A buyer still may prefer dealership stamps. Without them, skepticism grows, then offers drop. Financing can play a quiet role as well. Some lenders feel safer with the most common brands plus the most common service networks. A buyer who needs a loan may find extra questions appear. Extra questions slow the deal. Slow deals reduce leverage for the seller. The engine never fails. The paperwork still becomes harder, then the price slides. Surveyors can add pressure. A cautious buyer may request extra checks on digital systems, steering response, plus any networked displays. Each extra check adds time. Time gives the buyer more leverage. A seller may accept a lower number simply to keep the deal alive, since another buyer might bring the same concerns. A common scenario happens at the dock after a sea trial. The buyer admits the motor feels excellent. The buyer then starts talking about future resale. The seller hears it as negotiation. The buyer hears it as protection. That gap is where value gets shaved. A debated badge approaches next, one that triggers whispers about long-term support rather than day-to-day performance. Number 2. Evinrude E-TEC G2 300. This section lives inside a tension between owner experience plus buyer. Confidence. A motor can deliver torque, efficiency, strong acceleration. Resale still depends on what the next buyer believes about support. Evinrude E-TEC G2 300 often earns praise from owners who know the platform. The used market often focuses on service access. Buyers ask about the nearest technician. Buyers ask about diagnostic support. Buyers ask about parts flow. The buyer may never accuse the engine of being unreliable. The buyer still wants a price that compensates for uncertainty. That uncertainty can be regional. Service may feel easy in one area, rare in another. The used market prices the harder scenario, since buyers fear being stuck far from help. Dealers price conservatively for the same reason. A dealership wants predictable service pathways plus a fast sale. Any engine that triggers long conversations tends to receive a lower trade number. Speculation lives here. Some believe support fears are exaggerated, some believe the market is rational. Both views exist. Resale value follows the crowd, not the debate. The engine can run clean for years. Selling can still feel like a penalty for doubt. Owners often describe the same moment. A buyer praises how it runs, then asks for a discount large enough to cover a hypothetical future problem. The seller points to flawless behavior plus careful maintenance. The buyer points to uncertainty. Neither side is lying. The market simply rewards comfort. That is why trade offers can feel especially harsh. Dealers do not only buy the engine, dealers buy the future conversations that engine forces. A final flagship arrives next. Famous for innovation, plus famous for early adopter depreciation pressure. Number 1. Mercury Verado V12. Flagship excitement can become resale regret. A major leap in technology can attract buyers new. Used buyers often prefer proven simplicity. That difference creates depreciation pressure, even without failures. Mercury Verado V12. 100 represents huge power plus heavy integration. A used buyer sees a complex flagship, then imagines the cost of specialized service plus out-of-warranty components. The buyer also imagines the cost of anything connected to the platform: steering, controls, displays, wiring, plus software dependency. Even a flawless running example can feel like a high-commitment purchase. The early adopter tax shows up through language buyers use. They talk about later production runs. They talk about more time in the field. They talk about more techs who know it. Those phrases do not prove any problem exists. They still lower offers, since buyers pay less for unknowns. This model also highlights a truth about used markets. Innovation can reduce value faster than reliability does. A reliable, advanced system can still scare buyers who do not want to be the person learning it. Dealers can be cautious as well, since a complex flagship can tie up capital longer on the lot. Owners can feel blindsided. The motor performs, turns heads, delivers exactly what it promised. Resale still demands a comfort discount to buy the story. The engine never broke. The value still fell. A trade counter can make the lesson sharp. The owner expects a premium offer. The dealer studies the rig, then thinks about the next buyer, asking about warranty coverage, specialized tools, plus the cost of any integrated components outside the powerhead. The offer comes back lower than the owner expected, since the dealer is pricing time, not praise. Even a private buyer may think the same way, especially one who plans to finance the purchase. Resale value follows buyer confidence more than engine health. That is the lesson behind every entry in this list. A running engine can still lose value through perception alone. Support doubts, niche fit, integration fear, plus old reputation often outweigh clean compression. Before buying, picture the future sale conversation, not just the next weekend on. The water. Ask which shops service that exact model with confidence. Ask what controls, gauges, plus steering are tied to it. Now tell us, what outboard do you think gets unfairly crushed on resale? Drop it in the comments. Hit like if this saved you money, then subscribe for more real outboard truth.